My daughter I'm not going to see again.
But it was tremendous. It was riveting. It was powerful.
I really feel like there's a change in the air, and I left with hope.
This is a president who doesn't just listen, he acts. Things will change, and people will feel like school safety are much enhanced because he is the president.
This morning, we are remembering prominent Christian evangelist Billy Graham.
The legacy of his life was so focused on the hope of the gospel, the good news of Jesus.
Why would Bob Mueller indict 13 people that he knows he can't actually prosecute? These people are professional spies. There's no way Putin is going to extradite them here, so there will be no arraignment. No arraignment means no trial.
Nancy Pelosi, here's her alternative to building a wall.
Let's talk about mowing the grass so that people can't be smuggled through the grass.
I feel good today. Can't nobody bring me down. And I just got paid. And I think I'm on at the town.
Describe to me how this is country again. I thought Thomas Rhett was country.
It's changed.
Right. Hey, welcome aboard, folks.
It's the new country.
That's right. And this is a new hour of Fox and Friends, live from the mezzanine level, overlooking Midtown Manhattan, where it's rainy.
A little rainy, but that's okay. We can smell the weekend. The weekend's right around the corner. Most people got paid today. You must spend some money.
Right. If you listen closely, you can hear the direct deposit hit.
What?
Meanwhile,
Hold on, listen.
there you go.
Yep.
Right. Meanwhile, eight days ago, everything about what we were talking about in America changed because of the shooting on February 14th that took place in Parkland. Sadly, we've been through this before, but there's a sense, I don't want to speak for you guys, that this is different.
In fact, Kellyanne Conway said that a moment ago with us. And Brian, when you listen to the students who survived the shooting at Parkland last week, and that man right there, we talked to him in the first hour. His daughter was killed at Columbine.
Rachel.
You've got a young woman and a young man, both were at Parkland. If you missed their comments yesterday on the channel, it is, in the history of the Fox News channel, this was one of the most riveting, raw, compelling things we have ever telecast. And here's a portion of it.
All the school shootings. It doesn't make sense. Fix it. Should have been one school shooting, and we should have fixed it. And I'm pissed because my daughter I'm not going to see again. She's not here. So we all work together and come up with the right idea, and it's school safety. It's not about gun laws right now.
I would just like to say thank you for leading this country. You're a great leader, and I appreciate the direction that the country is going in. We all need to realize that we all have different points of views, and that we need, this solution is not going to be a singular thing. It's going to be multifaceted. This is not just Parkland anymore. This is America. This is every student in every city and everywhere. It's everybody.
There needs to be a significant change in this country because this has to never happen again, and people should be able to feel that when they go to school they can be safe, and because there needs to be a change.
There needs to be a change. But I just have so much respect for the men and women who showed up, and everybody in that room was affected somehow. And you had a president listening, and you had a president trying to take in the diversity of opinions. And the one thing he came out with that he said, you know what I'm hearing? You know, I'm thinking that one thing that would have stopped this guy would be if there were teachers, once trained, were maybe able to act, because the first responders, as he met with personally, couldn't get there for 10 minutes, which, by the way, is rapid. But when you get there in a school of 3,000, where do you go?
Matters, right?
Where do you
10
go?
minutes matters a lot. 1 minute matters a lot in those situations, every second. And every time you hear the gunshot go off, you think the worst. You can't imagine what those kids experienced. You know, and I've always said, I remember growing up and Dad would say, you know, wait till you start paying taxes. Wait, I'll show you what stress really is. I think high school was the most stressful time. I think it was for me. I'm sure it was for a lot of our viewers. Because,
and nobody was shooting at you.
Right, right. So what they've gone through is beyond anything we can ever imagine. Hats off to them for going to the White House and having this candid conversation with the President of the United States to evoke change.
But you know, the White House had no idea what anybody in that room was going to say. You know, somebody could have gotten up and just yelled at the president, and you would understand the emotion, but everybody was so respectful, and they weren't all on the same page. I mean, after the president talked a little bit about, I'd like to see some concealed carry, then you had the father of somebody who died at Sandy Hook say, Mr. President, I'm not for that. You had the mayor of Parkland, Florida, say essentially, I want you to get rid of assault rifles, and you got to do something about the red flag warnings, where it's easier when people start complaining about somebody's odd behavior for them to get a gun. At the end of the over hour, the President of the United States said, look, I've heard you. We're going to do something.
We're going to do something about this horrible situation that's going on. And we're going to all figure it out together. We're going to be very strong on background checks, very strong emphasis on the mental health of somebody. It's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. Would no longer have a gun-free zone. Next week, the governors are coming in from most of the states, and we're going to have a very serious talk about what's going on with school safety. We're fighting hard for you, and we will not stop. We will not stop. We're going to get there. Thank you for pouring out your hearts, because the world is watching, and we're going to come up with a solution.
A couple of things. Number one, do you know what this president's doing? Not only is he changing the presidency with the Twitter and the constant conversation he's having with the American people, this is the fourth, fifth time on a major topic, a major issue, he's opened up the curtain. And he said, I'm not going to give you a script. I'm going to tell you what I'm going through and how I do things. And you can make your judgment at home on how I'm doing. And I think who's ever in the communications department that it continues to take the so-called risk of opening up the curtain, letting the American people see an unscripted situation, trusting the president, vice president, and the secretary of education to make it effective and real is a fantastic decision. He's letting everybody know what's going on behind the curtain. He's not waiting for a so-called unnamed source to tell you what really happened behind the scene.
I think it's the president himself who's probably saying, you know what, so many people want to see what's going on. There's been so much anger, so much frustration, so much sadness in the past week. Open up the curtain. You're exactly right in using those words, Brian, because then we looked in, we saw those people, we could feel what was going on in their hearts, and our hearts are broken for them. And we get the fact that there's too much school violence.
Yeah, well, as a parent, it is our job. It's our job not to be our kid's best friend, our job to protect them. That is what we're supposed to train them to grow up to be responsible adults.
You're supposed to be safe at school.
You're absolutely. So Kellyanne, we were talking with Kellyanne Conway earlier, and she says these actions will come quickly. Listen.
Yes, people are angry and people are incredibly sad, but the resilience and the resolution. People kept saying this last week, this just feels differently this time, and I have to agree with that. It was clearly one of the saddest days since we arrived here in the 13 months we've been here at the White House, but it was also one of great resolution and purpose. These solutions will not happen overnight, but I can assure you that the time for listening and the time for action will come very quickly, because that's the way President Trump is. He's a man of action.
And by the way, there's a lot of people, I switched around, I said, that was unbelievable. I wonder how it's being covered. So late at night, I flipped around, and they were focusing on the president's questions, which someone zoomed in on.
Oh, the notes?
Yeah, by the way, you know, I expect sometimes if people don't do presentations for a living, or if they don't have the luxury of or the honor of asking questions for a living, you might be a little naive about that and say, why does the president have to write down questions? But I got news for you. Every single person who's reporting and mocking the president for questions, we have questions. They're not the most complicated things. They're bullet points. Where you're involved in a conversation, you need to be able to look down and say, oh, yeah, I got to remember to bring that up. I got to remember to thank the person. I got to remember to thank the flowers, so who gave us the flowers for the show. And for people who do this, to mock the president because he wrote out questions is so disingenuous. It's actually... It's very hurtful to people that trust networks.
I think what the networks had a problem with is he wrote a response. Someone, whoever on his staff, wrote a response to one of the questions, and it said, "I hear ya." Like that was what he was supposed to say to the kids.
It was just 5 points. It wasn't even in his handwriting. Listen, everybody.
And he never said that word. He never said, "I hear ya" to the kids.
By the way, that's a mindset you have to have. I'm listening. I'm not. This is not a speech. I'm listening. I might write that down on a page myself.
Everybody always has some notes. Those were his notes. We don't know who made them.
Here's the thing, though. That does not need to be their conversation on the other networks. This is about kids' lives, keeping our schools safe. We need to come together. We need to stop. It's not about politics here. It's about keeping our kids safe. I have a young daughter. I want her to go to school without having to worry about this. It's not about the notes that he has in his hands. He's doing the best he can. He's trying to listen to these kids. Period, paragraph.
There you go. Kellyanne said something's going to happen. We hope something does. All right. Meanwhile, 8:10 in New York City, and Jillian has a headline Fox News Alert.
That's right. Good morning, and some breaking news that we've been following from the overnight hours. So let's get you caught up on that. An attacker blows himself up after throwing a grenade at the U.S. Embassy in Montenegro. No one else hurt, and there is no major damage to the building. Right now, embassy officials are working with police to identify the suspect and a motive. Police officers lining the streets saluting a Maryland police officer who made the ultimate sacrifice. The second cop murdered in just 12 hours. Corporal Mushahid Ramzadeen was off duty when he was shot and killed trying to help a woman threatened by her estranged husband.
He was not working, needing help. He immediately responded to that plea for help, but he saved her life by giving his own.
Ramzadeen was a Marine Corps veteran, a 14-year veteran of the force, and Medal of Valor recipient. He leaves behind a wife and 4 children. His death coming shortly after Alabama officer Justin Bila was shot and killed in the line of duty. More than 24 people, including 2 Americans, hurt when a fireball rips through a ferry. Just look at this video. You can see debris flying over the sides of the ship. The ferry letting off passengers in Mexico's resort town of Playa del Carmen. No one seriously injured. The cause of the blast is still unknown.